And it definitely is the Friday edition, the very last for the week. But then I keep saying something that it is the beginning of more work up in here, and work in the sense that we have to do the needful to make sure that you out there viewing us at this very moment get the very best from us as always. Good morning to you out here, wherever you are viewing us from, either on all our social media handles. We say thank you for staying with us. Welcome to Morning Spring, the Friday edition, the TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Yeah. Wow. Tornado is my name, and obviously the irresistible TD on Twitter. Welcome you on behalf of the entire transmission team, our directors, our producers, the camera team, everybody. We say thank you for always keeping faith with us, because we do what we say as it is. Welcome to Morning Spring. Femi, good morning.
Boss, good morning today.
Good
morning, Nigeria. Good morning, world. Of course, this is the last one for this week, just like you said. But, you know, when you were talking about TGIF, you are sounding excited.
As if
like there is a plan ahead.
Yeah, there is a plan. You want to use in the best position to help us out.
Okay. Of course, once again, good morning. Good to have you here again. Join us on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, the station of choice. You know, to follow us on all our social media platforms, and of course we are live on our YouTube page at Western Spring Television. Femi Ojo is my name. I welcome you. Of course, in the last 24 hours, you know, so many things has happened, especially politically speaking. In the ruling All Progressives Congress, I'm talking about the government at the center now. Bit of politicking, party politicking here and there. Is it going to be the leadership of the party, the national chairman and the secretary? Finally, they were elected by the NEC yesterday, the highest decision organ, highest decision-making organ of the party. You know, and it produced former Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje. Because when his name was missing on the minister's list, many persons were saying, what happened? But then I think he has gotten something for himself in a manner of speaking. Ganduje is now the national chairman of the APC. And of course, the former spokesperson of the Senate. Ajibola Bashir, popularly called SRJ, is now the secretary of the party. So from one Oshun person to another, talking about the post of the secretary, from former deputy governor of Oshun State, Yola Omishore, now to SRJ. And so definitely back in Oshun State here, many persons were happy. We even thought there was a rally, you know, the jubilation, of course, celebrating the APC in Oshun, especially the caucus. You know what I'm talking about. They are very happy at this time, knowing fully well that former governor of Oshun State as well, Adeboye Itola, has been nominated as a minister as well. So I think it's a good time for the APC in Oshun, in the manner of speaking. But then, yes, might be a good time in terms of appointment, but then it calls for more work from them.
Absolutely.
Talking about the ministerial nominee, Adeboye Itola, and you know, that's part of what exactly that we are monitoring for you.
No doubt about that. And obviously, as yesterday, we heard that there's been this collapse of negotiations between the federal government and the NLC. You have all this, another proposed strike.
It looks like a back and forth.
Seriously.
At a point, you think there is a light at the end of the tunnel. At some point, you feel, what's going on here?
Yeah, we've heard news reaching us, and virtually it's come onto the dailies today that come the 14th of August, they will be embarking on another strike at this point in time. But we just hope all this can be resolved. And again, looking at the resident doctors who are on strike, federal government has come out to say,
oh Lord,
no work, no pay. I remember what happened with ASU sometime last year for like 8 months. I still feel they're still on it, whereby for 8 months they weren't paid.
The government made good of its promise.
Right. Resident doctors, we just hope or it shouldn't be. Just as we spoke with our guest yesterday, the TUC chairman, Osun State chapter here yesterday, should that be the only way, the only option for federal government to adhere, to listen to the pains, to the yearnings of Nigerians? Should they just be through strike? That's the only way.
Must we always go?
Must we always go on? Seriously,
that's the question.
Because there's no way some set of people are enjoying the largesse of this country at the expense of those who put them there.
And those who put them there are seeing the kind of lifestyle, the affluence, the opulence, the gap. And I think in any society, any society that has that huge gap between the leaders and the followers, there will always be this palpitation.
Definitely.
The trust will not always be there. And I remember Comrade Adeboali, the TUC, former TUC state chairman now, I said yesterday and say, it seems that's the only language that the government understands.
Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. We look forward to that opportunity where they both can come together, negotiate, put things on the table, and let it... There are ways about this.
And walk the talk.
Seriously.
Because I think the issue with labor is this trust thing. It's not just you promising us. Give us a timeline and do that thing that you say you do. So it's not just about negotiation.
No, absolutely. You remember yesterday I made a comment, a statement here on the show yesterday, and I'm still sticking with it. If God willing, by December, the Port Harcourt refinery isn't working. Oh, goodness me. Mr. President,
we hope it works.
That's the hope. That's the belief. That's the trust.
It will have an advantage.
Exactly.
The nation will be the better for it. Yeah, definitely. Many persons will still be employed.
Yeah. If a private person can at least put up that kind of refinery, what about a government, federal government of a nation? Why can't all these refineries work? You can budget.
Sounding like it's rocket science.
I don't.
Refinery.
Look,
really,
if it can't be maintained by government, let's concession, sell it off, let's privatize it. I don't know the right word to use, but why is it that the federal government have refused? So what happened with NITAL? Here we are today, everybody's carrying the tabs, the Androids, and then Nigerians are enjoying it. So it now depends on which of the networks you want to stay with.
Of course. Full deregulation
seriously.
Of that sector. And I think it was started by the government of President Obasanjo. When the late Umaru Yar'Adua got there, he reversed some of these things. But the question now is, even if those refineries are finally resuscitated and functional, can they be functioning optimally at the installed capacity?
No.
Because we are talking about refineries that have been there for years.
Femi, I will say it depends on what you are putting in place. All right, we want quality pictures up in here. Kudos to Mr. Chairman. He's decided to get very expensive cameras and what have you. That's why, look at when you see the picture quality that comes out here, you give the thumbs up to him. If the federal government wants that refinery to work, get the best. It doesn't stop them from not. I don't know. The money is somewhere stashed. Where are the monies recovered? The looted monies recovered? Where are the monies that were started in Switzerland, in Dubai?
Money collected from, convicts. The EFCC,
where are all these
persons and,
what the
ICPC?
Honestly, if only the monies recovered from the Abacha loot is put into this refineries, by now these refineries should be working.
I think that Abacha loot, quote unquote, the moment you say it, many persons are always like, this kind of money, we should have a panel of inquiry, especially about this money alone. How much has been collected from 1999 to 2023? Okay, this has been collected at this time. Lagos about the Express Road, the second Niger Bridge, the Kano-Abuja road, the rail lines,
yes.
How much? Let's see what you have done with it. But then I just hope we'll get there, because I think it's the season of investigation now. The CBN, there's a searchlight on them, the NNPCL, but then the quality of investigation is something. Do the people in power have the teeth, the steel to go all the way, even if it has to do with people that are loyal
to that government,
to them, to that party, yes, to the people in power?
It puts everybody on check. Everybody tends to be very careful that, hey, if I do this, something like this might happen.
Sacred cows anywhere.
Yeah.
And the people, we always give kudos to any government
that does that.
Dare,
yeah,
to do that, irrespective of whose ox.
It's God.
It's God.
There was a time I read something about China. If you dare steal and you are found wanting for corruption in China, is death.
Of course.
That the list of things amongst that you can give an official in government is probably a ball pen. That's But even I was like, what about a bottle of wine, an expensive wine? If you dare
take a bottle of wine and lose your head, they have the kind of laws that govern each society and country differs, and that's part of what, because ours is Federal Republic of Nigeria. China is People's Republic of China. And I got to know that the current leader of North Korea, he's a lot on his own. When he came into power, there was his uncle that was found culpable in corruption.
Seriously?
He authorized the thing. So honestly, the thing is this: if the man in power can give the go-ahead that his own uncle should be executed, I'm sure there is no man or woman born of a woman in the name of a minister or government functionary who will dare do something bad or against the law of that land, and you expect a cover from a man that has authorized the killing of his own uncle. And I think that's the way it should go, according to the laws governing our land. Yeah,
I think probably when our guest comes in, we will discuss something like that. It's something we will ask him. He's seen the better part, better days in this country, but we still know, and we're praying, as he will say that Tunde likes to pray, that seriously, Nigeria is still going to be better.
Amen.
Nigeria is still going to be better.
I'm hopeful as well.
All right, it's the Morning Spring right here from Western Spring Television. We'll take a very short break. When we return, we'll go straight to the details, making the rounds from the various dailies that we have with us here. Please stay with us.
Found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission. Even diffusion. Vast and fast. Detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
and your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
On this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in the multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history. The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trades and investments of Western powers. Western Spring Television identifies Berlin Conference as a major event in history. This iconic African presents the narrative of a man destined to exert an imperishable global influence in Western education. His was a story of a freeborn, captured and sold into slavery. He was born in Oshogun, a native Yoruba village near Iseyin in Okeogun axis of southwest Nigeria. Samuel Ajayi Crowther was the foundation student of Fora Bay College, Sierra Leone, the foremost university where the pioneer set of native Africans were educated. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's greatest contribution to humanity was his translation of the Holy Bible into the Yoruba language. The man who authored the Yoruba dictionary was also credited with the translation of English classic hymns into Yoruba and the Ekwere languages. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's private residence in Badagry, incidentally the first story building in Nigeria, is an archival museum dedicated to the memory of Africa's first bishop. Western Spring Television identifies Samuel Ajayi Crowther as a watershed character in history. The 1914 Amalgamation Treaty is synonymous to the birth of Nigeria. Frederick Lugard, a British Army captain and an outlaw who struck gold in Africa, became the instrument used by destiny to make it happen. The amalgamation of Nigeria was designed for economic reasons by the colonial administration to offset Northern Protectorate budget deficit by Southern Protectorate surplus returns. The amalgamation had ad initio created imbalance in the economic political structure of Nigeria and was responsible for the persistent hiccups and the efforts to forge a united country till today. Nigeria's amalgamation was labeled as the mistake of 1914 by native northern conservatives who neither wanted it nor contributed anything significant to its sustenance. Western Spring Television identifies with Amalgamation Treaty of 1914 as a watershed event in history.
Turn it up! It's the Wild Wild West, and Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be showing on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
You're welcome back, and it's still Morning Springs on Western Spring Television. Now we go to the papers, give you the headlines and stories that are seen today in our major dailies. And we have The Guardian, The Nation newspaper, and The Punch. And let me start from The Guardian for this morning. The Guardian today. Nigeria's political dynasties wax stronger as poverty deepens. That's a very deep caption there. Nigeria's political dynasties wax stronger as poverty deepens. That's very easy to connect with because especially seeing the ministerial nominees that have just been released, the batch A, the batch B, you see, mostly almost the same persons, the same political power, across the state are still being brought back, are still being recycled. We have that conversation much more later. Okay. And with a big picture of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there is this headline that says, which generation wields the most power influence in Nigeria? Take that again. Which generation wields the most power and influence
in Nigeria?
In Nigeria. That's quite very deep.
That's
very you need that. It's in today's Guardian. Okay. And contempt charge. NLC threatens strike if summons is not withdrawn. Of course, contempt charge. NLC threatens strike if summons is not withdrawn. In that press statement released by the NLC 2 days ago, this was part of the consideration that they said, okay, apart from the protest, there is a summon or summons that are being brought out against them. And now the NLC are talking tough this morning. Withdraw these or go back, to the strike action. Okay. Here, FX challenges. High OPEX force GSK's exit from Nigeria. Okay. Forex challenges. High OPEX force GSK's exit from Nigeria. That's GlaxoSmithKline. We don't want to be losing these blue chip companies.
We've lost quite a whole lot of them.
A whole lot.
Honestly, looking at Leventis, Dunlop, Michelin, Kingsway. We grew up knowing all those things. And I remember Barter. When school is about to resume, I remember my pop and my mom would always take us to Barter. That brown sandal.
Fortina.
Oh, jeez.
Fortina sandal. Now, we cannot. We're talking about, a lack of jobs and, unemployment or underemployment. We cannot afford these companies leaving, especially at this critical time. Now, to the situation in Niger. Biden calls for immediate release of Bazoum. Orders officials out of Niger. Sometimes when you see these foreign countries retrieving their people, getting them out of a particular state, you just know something is really wrong. You can't really tell what will happen. And now we have the angle of the U.S. president saying there should be immediate release. And that's the position of ECOWAS as well. Release this person. Let's know where he is. And then we can deal with the rest of the matter. Now, moving on. Why average Nigerians can't afford new vehicles? New vehicles. Why average Nigerians can't afford new vehicles?
Oh, wow. That's
even if it's innocent motors. Because they come in millions. Now, the question is, an average Nigerian, what's the income per month or per year?
Less than $100.
How can he or she afford these? Now, is there a payment plan? That's something we have to interrogate as well. In some countries, when you want to buy a car, you do a payment plan. You don't have to pay once. You can pay maybe 2-3 years, and in as much you have a verifiable source of income. The company will just hold you by your word, have your salary account, and they know that this is something that you can do. Now, the coup in Niger, military option, unrealistic. The military had to come up. There was this document that was circulated on social media space like 2 days ago, detailing how, purportedly detailing how the Nigerian military are preparing an onslaught against Niger, especially in going through Sokoto State. And many persons are wondering, how did this get leaked, you know, to the public space? But the military, yes, they released a statement and said they are not considering that at the moment. That's that. Okay. And at the top strip, in red, manufacturers endangered as more Nigerians switch to cheaper brands. So quality is being compromised.
Leave quality to one side.
It's all about availability and what the money can afford.
Exactly.
The purchasing power of what you and I have in our hands. So it's not about what you want to get. It's about what you can afford.
Wow.
Available. Because that headline says manufacturers endangered as more Nigerians switch to cheaper brands.
Don't blame Nigerians. It's what I can afford.
Of course, what the money can carry.
Honestly. Not that it's not just in Nigeria alone. It virtually happens everywhere around the world. But the rate at which it is happening here in Nigeria is worrisome.
Yeah.
I know I've had the opportunity where even most especially maybe around that November, December, where there are discounts. Yeah. Discount
clearance sales.
Clearance sales. In
towards the end of the year.
Yeah. You know, you move out at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., you see it all there in the US, and you just wonder, wow.
That's a particular time of the year.
It's a
in this case,
but here it is all through.
It is the situation that we have found ourselves.
Honestly.
And to be a manufacturer at this time, to be an employer of labor at this time, I'm not sure it's all uhuru. Talking about powering, manufacturing has to do with power.
That is one of the major things that's
an issue.
You just reeled out something about GSK.
Yeah.
GSK, I've known GSK over 40 years now, and here they too are planning on moving out of this country.
Especially in medicine and pharmaceuticals.
They're moving out of this country. It's really, I don't know.
Of course, price of diesel, price of petrol.
It's seriously.
Yeah.
Let's move on here. Quickly checking out some other stories making the rounds from the Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper is what I have. They have the big bold caption there. It says Ganduje pledges reform, fairness to reposition APC, and the writer there says former governor Senator Bashiru steps in. Tinubu, let's fulfill our promises, and the NWC they're saying gets Fiat to fill 6 vacant posts. We just hope, we wish them the very best. And our own from here in Osun State, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, SRJ, we wish you the best. We wish the new chairman and everybody the best. Moving further, then above that picture, you see how you have the picture of former head of state, Major General Abdul Salami Abubakar. You have the Sultan of Sokoto with the military junta in Niger discussing, negotiating. This is here. But there is a story just beside that picture there. It says Tinubu sent Abdul Salami Sultan to warn Niger junta. A writer there says Kingibe on diplomatic shuttle to Algeria and Libya. The red strip from that same daily, the Nation newspaper for today, you have Labour threatens strike over contempt charge against Ajaero. Labour threatens strike over contempt charge against Ajaero. That's the red strip just above that other picture that you have General Abdul Salami and the junta in Niger. On the top strip of the Nation newspaper for today, NSA probe another vessel held with stolen crude. The writer there says suspected military boat escorting ship. Now, takes me back to the point where former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, in the presence of the army chiefs and the then army chiefs, and said, your people are the ones supporting, helping these people to bunker, to siphon, to steal fuel.
Crude,
Now, crude. Now, look at what it says. Suspected military boat escorting ship. Now, that's something that should not be swept under the carpet.
Of course, it should.
At this point in time, I feel the military head under the new leadership at this moment in time, the chief of army staff, the chief, all of them should look into this. Who were those personnel escorting that ship?
Yeah.
By the time you begin to bring people to book, by the time we begin to make sure that they are fine, they are suspended, they are dealt with, they are probably put in guard room, marshaled, I think everybody will sit up.
Of course, you know, and it speaks to the fact that any functional society or community or nation all around the world has two things. One, the concept of good deeds and reward. And bad deeds and consequences. When someone or an organization has done well, you reward them. You make them to understand that you are doing well, and this is the reward for your labor. Now, if you have done badly, you have behaved badly, you should know that there is consequence for what you are doing. So any society that model it up and don't give kudos when it's necessary and don't punish when it is necessary, this is what you get. Now, if the story is saying the NSA is interested and they are probing, and that's why you have the picture of Nobody Badu there, and we want to tell him or people involved from this desk, you must go all the way. That's why the people are not trusting. Now, it's not all about you saying you are probing. Will you actually probe?
Probe and then get to the root.
Will you name and shame these persons? Because when it has to do with people, that doesn't have name, you can easily, you know, bring them in front of the camera, parade them, and still saying you are doing investigation, even when it's just an allegation, you know. But when it has to do with big people, sometimes you don't get the name. Who are these persons? All you hear is, we're investigating, we're on the matter. Now, the NSA, you must walk the talk.
Right.
Let the people know that this is a new dispensation.
Absolutely.
You know, and we must see, because we are talking about people's patrimony, people's collective commonwealth. And what these persons are stealing, robbing us dry, blind. And now, to make it worse, we are hearing that a suspected military boat is escorting.
That is even the painful thing for me.
An agency of the government
who are supposed to protect this
lawkeepers and enforcers doing this. We stay on this matter.
As much as probably the NSCDC, who are supposed to see to vandalism and stuff, but how will a military escorting? I don't know. It's very painful. But let me just move on here. NNPCL NIPCO to deploy 35 CNG stations. Oil, gas, free trade zones attract $16 billion investment. We keep hearing figures. All this investment, if $16 billion investment is put into the country, and you've employed about 2,000 workers to work 1,000. The society will get better. But we come on the pages of paper and we get to reel this out. See huge, and I just hope it's not all those media talks and media hype. On the bottom strip, quickly on the bottom strip of the Nation newspaper. Pencom's assets hit 16 trillion naira. Delta to buy electric buses. Delta to buy electric buses. Where's the power to power those buses?
That's the question. Obia will be charging points all over the place.
Goodness
so that somebody doesn't just take off from Asaba.
Coming to Lagos.
And he's stranded between Agbo and it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Hope that it's not just you doing that thing. We are not pessimistic here. It's the history, is what we have witnessed. Consistency. Do you have charging points across the state? And what will be the route? Because so that, just like you said, so that you don't leave Asaba. And then between Agbo and Benin, you are stranded there. And then, you know, innocent person are just attacked by unscrupulous elements. And, you know, just an addition to what we said earlier about military boats, the allegation, because it's still an allegation, that the military boat was escorting ship. I think the military hierarchy apart from the NSA, should be interested in these. The Chief of Defense Staff should be interested to see you can't afford your name to be soiled. Who are these persons? You should finger them. At this time, the CDS, that's the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and all of them, you are the pinnacle of your career. Absolutely. That's the height that you can reach. So I'm not sure they should be wary. They should fear of who is involved. You have a name that has always paid. We're talking about the Nigerian military that has done very well when it comes to global missions on the continent and the rest of it. So when these things are happening inwards, we should really see to that. And we go to the Punch for this morning. Federal government, Labour, talks collapse. NLC begins strike August 14. This is even more authoritative than the ones we've read earlier. Federal government, Labour, talks collapse. NLC begins strike August 14. Okay, some will say, when you know you're still going to go on strike on 14, why did you call it off just 2 days ago? We still spoke about the relevance of NLC these days. Maybe they have information that we don't. Okay. Why Labour made a U-turn on agreement reached with Tinubu on subsidy removal? I think this speaks to it. Now, MAN, that's Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, the LCCI demand more palliatives from federal government. NLC gives reasons for ending protest, giving the reason why they ended the protest, giving another reason why they should, they will embark on another one in the next 10 days or thereabout. And then you have the bold picture of what happened at the APC house yesterday, and we have the picture of the president, President Bola Tinubu, the new chairman of that party, Abdullahi Ganduje, the new secretary of the APC, Ajibola Bashir, of course, the vice president, Kashim Shettima, the Senate president, Godswill Akpabio, and a host of others. And just beneath it, you have PDP, LP, mock APC as NEC ratifies Ganduje party chair. PDP LP mock APC as NEC ratifies Ganduje party chair. Sometimes you'll be wondering, what's your own in this? It's not your party, so why are you involved? But someone I know will say, this thing called politics can really be interesting, especially when you are outside of the fold and you are not really part of them in a partisan way. Now, in blue, the blue strip just below it, you have this one, sad one. Father of siblings killed by collapsed hotel fence demands justice. Father of siblings killed by collapsed hotel fence demands justice. Okay, and beside it, Delta government indicts Lagos hospital over doctor's death in elevator. That's Dr. Devo that died a few days ago, and it's now Delta government is talking tough, and they're speaking to their counterpart in Lagos, indicting them. Now, beside it, NNPCL, NIPCO begin deployment of auto gas stations. Okay, and at the top street, you have Niger. Tinubu woos Libya, Algeria against junta, and that's why that delegation led by the former SGF, Babagana Kingibe, they are speaking to Libya and Algeria, making treaties on how to end that situation in Niger. Okay, federal government begins no work, no pay for striking doctors. Today, we are back here.
Well, it's, I think that's something, I don't know. It's because if you're not going to pay me, because we are seeking demand for certain things. Look, it's going to, it's just the citizens that this will affect the most. Yeah, federal government is trying to impose their authority that we employed you.
They are the employer. An employee cannot dictate to the employer.
Yeah. So rather than this coming up, rather than NMA coming up on strike, federal government saying no work, no pay.
The resident doctors.
The resident doctors, please, can we just sit back, dialogue, and find a way around this. Nigerians are suffering. There are people, for instance, now my mother-in-law will be going for a surgery. She has to embark on the surgery. Now these guys are on way. Now we are paying over almost
0.3 on those.
My brother, it's most likely we will have to pay double if we have to take it to a private hospital now. And I don't know.
At this time, really, by the way, I wish a quick recovery.
Thank you.
Now, this saying federal government begins no work, no pay for striking doctors. Now, considering what happened between the federal government and the last administration, between them and ASU, you know, the former Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, told them that we are not going to pay you. And 8 months, they were not paid. And ASU did all it could, you know, went on strike, did this and that, and had that meeting with FEMI Amila, who was the Speaker of the House at the time, and they came back to work. Now, we don't even understand the situation. But then, there's some we argue and say, in as much you feel you have something to grind out with the federal government, talking about either ASU or the striking doctors now, saying you are not going to work because you are protesting, you are ventilating your position on several issues. Now, while you're not working at that period, some have argued and say, truly, in fairness, should you be paid?
You know work. Well,
you're not working. You are protesting.
I think
okay, it's fine. So why should you be paid?
There's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah. That's the argument from some persons.
Yeah, really. Government had not done the needful.
And that's why they are going on strike.
And that's why they are going on strike.
So if you are going on strike, why should you expect to be paid for that moment?
For that moment, because naturally, if government had done the needful, they would not go on strike. So it's a win-win thing, but I still believe that rather than the strike action, they should probably, they've been sitting with government.
They should not even get to that point.
It shouldn't have gotten to that point. Federal government ought to have done what is needful, and definitely, if they had been able to do what's needful and they still go on strike, I would say, yeah, at that moment, yes, they probably will not get paid. I can't be working, and certain things that ought to be put in place are not there. Yeah, it brings down the morale of the staff. The work thing will just like
some even say the infrastructure to work is not even there.
So you get,
of course,
right?
Yeah. And finally, just beside it, we have new public service rules may force out 512 directors. New public service rules may force out 512 directors, and there you have beside it the picture of the head of the civil service of the Federation, Mrs. Esson there. And that's all there is for Punch, the front page of the Punch for today.
And that will be it from the dailies for this beautiful Friday morning. And let's get down to the business of the morning proper as well. So we'll be seated in with our guests very, very shortly. It has finally been released. The entire, probably, I'm not sure, there will be another batch of ministerial nominees. We have 47 names at this moment in time. And want to assessing them. We just hope we can finish. If we can, it's something we will continue. But looking at 47 ministerial nominees and the cost of governance at this moment in time in Nigeria, is all this set of people needed? Is it worth it? Having 47 of them, coupled with the fact that there will still be their own advisors, SSs amongst them, and it's still the same government that will pay all of them. We'll be assessing and analyzing this when we come back on the show. It's the Morning Spring from Western Spring Television. Please stay with us.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewa,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in the multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
As a constitutional tradition in Nigeria's democracy, President Bola Tinubu finally released a list of ministerial nominees to work with his cabinet in adherence to the 6th chapter, Part 1, Section 147 of the Nigerian Constitution. Though the second batch came at a time when the 60 days window for appointment expired already, the first batch of the list got to the desk of the nation's lawmakers on the eve of the 60 days ultimatum.
The Section 12 of our standing orders had already been invoked and is already in force, but specifically Section 12I.
28 names made it to the first list, while 19 personalities headlined the second list. Part of the list include former governors Boyega Oyetola of Osun State, who was seeking a re-election before he lost the bid, Bello Matawale of Zamfara State, who was a former lawmaker at the Green Chamber, Simon Lalong of Plateau State, Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State, who served his 2 terms, Ibrahim Gaidam, who is a former Yobe governor and a sitting senator at the Red Chamber. Former and incumbent lawmakers are also not left out on the list. They include Zephaniah Beatrice from the FCT, Sabi Abdullahi, currently represents Niger North at the National Assembly, Ainikan Lokobiri, who was also a minister under former President Muhammadu Buhari, Saidu Alkali from Gombe State, and Dr. Yusuf Sununu representing Yauri Shanga Ngaski Federal Constituency. The rest are technocrats and educationists like Professor Isiak Salako, Dr. Tunji Alausa, who is a nephrologist, Professor Taye Maman, financial experts like Lola Ade John and Shaibu Audu, Bosun Tijani from Ogun State, Miriam Shetima, who is known for good governance advocacy, Ahmed Kwazo of Kano State, and Uba Amadu from Taraba State. Collectively, President Tinubu has nominated 47 persons for ministerial roles, making his administration first to record the highest number of nominees. And this is coming at a time when several pleas have poured out to Nigerians, from President Tinubu to endure economic pain instigated by fuel subsidy removal.
Fellow Nigerians, this period may be hard on us, and there is no doubt that it's tough on us. But I urge you all to look beyond the present temporary pains and aim at the larger picture. All our good and helpful plans are in the works. More importantly, I know that they will work. Sadly, there was an unavoidable lag between subsidy removal and these plans coming fully online. However, we are swiftly closing the time gap. I plead with you, please have faith in our ability to deliver and in our concern for your well-being. We will get out of this turbulence, and due to the measures we have taken, Nigeria will be better equipped.
36 ministers in his first tenure and 42 ministers at the second. Goodluck Jonathan had 33, while Olusegun Obasanjo appointed 42 ministers but was later reduced to 40. Geographically, the list spreads across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria as 8 nominees emerge from the North Central, 7 from the Northeast, while the largest geopolitical zone, Northwest, has 9 nominees. And down south, 8 ministerial nominees emerge from the southeastern part, 6 from south-south, and the southwest has 9 nominees. For an administration that promised 35% women representation, the 9 women included in the ministerial nominees list means just about 19% of women are represented. Historically, since 1999, no Nigerian president has reached the benchmark of 35% women representation as stipulated by the National Gender Policy 2006. Moving on, altogether, the list encompasses former and incumbent lawmakers, 9 former governors, out of which 1 is a member of the People's Democratic Party, Nyesom Wike, among other Nigerians. Toby Sanusi, Western Spring Television News.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Toby Sanusi, for that report there. All right, welcome back. It's still Morning Spring right here from Western Spring Television. And just as you have watched the names of the nominees for the ministers, the ministerial nominees as released from the National Assembly, from Mr. Senate President, who reeled out the names as sent to him by Mr. President through his Chief of Staff. we first of all had 28. Let me just refreshing us a little bit. 28 names were first of all sent to the National Assembly. Then we had another 19 names, and it comprises about 9 ex-governors on that list of 47. And yeah, that's the first time in the history of this nation we'll be having that large sum of ministerial nominees, and probably if eventually they make the whole stuff eventually. But this is the first in the history of Nigeria since 1999. All right, I'd like to welcome our guest is seated already, and he is a man well brained up, and he's a former editorial chairman of Daily Independent newspaper. Mr. ADEMILUYI, always a pleasure to have you here as well. Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Kind of you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
47 nominees. Tinubu has set a new record. First of all, let's look at that. 47. Do we need that large amount of ministers at this point in time? If eventually they make the list, they make it to the to be called ministers.
There are a couple of issues there. Certainly, we don't really need 47 ministers, all of whom are going to come in with their baggage of special assistants and special this and that. You know, it's not so much the cost of 47 ministers and their attendant baggage. It's the signaling effect that you do not have any determination to cut down on the costs of the machinery of government. Ever since we've been had to be making sacrifices, nobody has talked about your Ronsai report. In the, you know, I'm sorry to go back in time, but it's important. In 1962, when they had the austerity measures, the first thing that was done before the austerity measures were announced was a voluntary agreement to cut the pay of everybody from president to local government councillors across the country, across partisan lines by 10%. It created a different atmosphere that if from the president to the prime minister to your local government councillor, everybody's pay was going to be covered. People had to accept the austerity measures because it was obvious that, and you know, they ban on foreign travels, this sort of thing and that. None of that has happened now. So it's not really so much the quantum of money involved. It's just that you're sending a signal out that it's a continuation of the past. And then you're not asking other people to tighten you're not going to get the national consensus for people to tighten their belts. It's unfortunate because one of the key questions is what actually is the structure of the government? Nobody knows as of this morning. The structure, are you going to have ministers of state? Are you going to have 47 ministries, which sounds absurd? So you're not actually giving a signaling effect as to the determination to face the crisis as a united front. And then secondly, people have questions to ask about what actually is the structure of the government. What kind of government are you going to run? It's not too tired. My last observation on that score is that I've never been, you know, the original thing was that they should have had 30 days and then they changed it to 60 days. Frankly, but this is my point. I don't think that anybody needs more than 20 days after inauguration to constitute again, because what you need 60 days to this familiar, recycled people, it's disappointing. I'm sorry to say.
You know, in talking about regulations and the 60 days space that was given by our laws, I think it was even one of those things signed by President Muhammadu Buhari, former President Muhammadu Buhari, before he left. You know, at the twilight of his government that mandated, because before there wasn't a stipulated date. They could go on and on. The first administration of President Muhammadu Buhari went for months before he actually had ministers. Now, talking about, and then you have to have a national assembly before you can make nominations, of course. So that has to be considered as well. But looking at this list that has been released, you have former governors, 9 of them, politicians. Some have talked about the mix, the blend. What do you make of it? Some have talked about old faces being recycled over and over, the new breeds being involved, technocrats coming with relatively unknown names with huge credentials. So the mix, Mr. ADEMILUYI, what do you make of it?
Well, apart from the unwieldy figure and the problem of a dysfunctional government, there's, one of the problems with having so many governors is that it actually distracts from some very, very good picks. I mean, when you look at the quality of people like Wale Edun, Adebayo, Adelabu, the lady commissioner from
from Cross Rivers,
the lady commissioner from Imo State.
Okay.
It was really excellent. I thought she was outstanding. People like Beta Idu, the professor from Gavi, I think. The women generally had much higher standards than the men. I mean, I thought that if the 2/3 of the list had been comprised of all those type of people, the Wale Edus, the Beta Idus, the woman from Imo State, the country would have been delirious by now. It showed, that there was a need to have people with the technical competence and the managerial capacity to run the process. But what I don't understand about this whole governor thing is the Senate has become largely a retirement home. We are now making ministerial portfolios part of the retirement home for governors. You mean after you have been a governor, there's nothing else to do in life? You can't, you can't find something else to do, run an NGO, become vice chancellor of a university. There's so many things to do in life. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's in this country, how many ex-governors have you seen being cabinet ministers in the United States or in Brazil, where they run this same kind of system? So I find it odd because look, it's not that anybody should be debarred from holding a government.
Absolutely.
Nobody should be debarred.
In fact, there's no law against that.
There's no law against that. But when you say somebody is an ex-governor, what is his track record? Are these people in the same league as people like Lateef Jakonde, Sami Bakwe, people you remember decades later? You get what I mean? These are people that even in 50 years' time, you still remember their names because you can see the positive, lasting contributions they made. Now, these governors now, if you go, for example, one of these governors actually has a problem with the United States government. It's going to be confirmed since it's bow and go. So you have a federal minister now. What's his diplomatic position when he goes to the United States? I know he has immunity and stuff, but then Augusto Pinochet too had immunity as a former head of state when he entered the United Kingdom, and the rest is history. Look, I wish President Tinubu had not included all these recycled, because look, the demographics of the world has changed. The succeeding generation is bound to be better educated, much better educated than those preceding them. I'll be stupid to say that I'm as educated as my children or the people of the education. If my children and the people of their classmates, if they're not better educated than me, the country it's not me who has a problem. The country is in a problem. So all this recycling, it makes you to wonder about when are we going to leave these things behind.
So you seem not too impressed with that blend, with that mix.
I'm not impressed at all. I wish that the president had stuck to mainly technocrats and people who, see the world from a different perspective. They're more current, they're more alive, they're sharper, they're more agile. One of the things I admire the British for, in case the president is in a conundrum, one of the things I admire is that they have all these sort of useless, meaningless posts, which they would have given to all these. I'll give you an example of how savvy the British are in managing this kind of dilemma. When I was in secondary school, when it said, I would have failed my exam, when it said Postmaster General, I honestly thought that Postmaster General was in charge of the post office. There was no internet or anything. It was only after a while that I discovered that Postmaster General, like Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, is a meaningless post that you give to one of these people who have just become ministers, so that you can give him a big car, big official residence, and he'll be gallivanting all over the world when they are swearing in president of this country and president. And I like the British. He was savvy. The guy has no portfolio, no job, nothing, but you've kept him, you've neutralized him Because there's nothing like Postmaster General. It's not as if the man goes to the post office and he probably doesn't. But they have all these kind of funny posts in which the guy has a bigger car than the Prime Minister. He has a bigger official residence than the Prime Minister. So you've kept him out of arm's way.
But he doesn't necessarily influence anything.
It's not relevant to anybody, but he gets a lot of money. You know, he gets Estacco going to Nigeria, going to Sierra Leone to represent them.
Mr.
And I wish we could invent.
I wonder if that's working at.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Can we ever get some?
Well, I mean, after a while, out of exigency, you might develop those things. Because I don't really, a lot of these people, like I said, one of these guys, right, has a bomb rap on him in the United States. The guy has a lot of explanation to do about being a bad man for the late Sonny Abacha. I don't think this kind of thing presents this country in a good light.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry to say it doesn't.
Yes,
and then you ask yourself, what is the compelling reason?
Why?
Because there are two issues now. I mean, that there are two speculations now.
Okay.
People are saying, I'm not saying that that's what I'm saying, but I found it intriguing that people are saying that this cabinet composition is politically expedient in case there's a rerun, if the tribunal says so, or the Supreme Court, and so these people have to deliver their states, and if the president is thinking of a second term, that is actually a preparation for either of the two. But honestly, he picks some very good people, and for that I give him a lot of applause. But I wish he could have just stayed away from this whole these retired people.
Speaking about governors, Mr. ADEMILUYI, there is a convention that we know in this nation that especially when these kind of nominations are done, people are rewarded for what they have done for the party and for the candidate while they were, campaigning for power. So they believe these are some of the things you do to appease, to reward
and to get
them, and then to get them in charge of their state, to work for the party. So are you saying that these former governors, like 9 of them, now, interestingly, one of them is
an opposition.
As at now, he hasn't publicly denounced the membership of the opposition party, but then he was a minister of state for education. He later went on to become a governor for 8 years, and he's back as a minister as well. So the political reward for the work done by this big act, can we just nullify it just like that?
The use of the word reward itself is odious. It's offensive, actually. A ministerial position should not be a reward for being a political
But interestingly, that's what he started to be.
In the case of Wike, surely they have all kind of people like Beta Edu, all kinds of that are really good in that state. I mean, this man has been minister, he's been governor, I think he was chairman of local government before then. Look, how many countries have, no, seriously, how many countries do you know, if you fact check, who have this sort of recycling apparatus? How many people are in the government in South Africa who were involved in government 20 years ago? Ditto for the United States. And then look at the cabinet of Joe Biden. How many former governors are you seeing there? You get what I... You see, there's something that is stultifying about all these things. There's something that makes you think whether the country is actually making progress. Because like I said, right, maybe it's my own concept of development. I don't see any stellar achievements that any of these people have made as governors. If they had, I would say yes, there's a compelling reason to make the person, to make the president a minister. You get what I mean? There's a compelling reason. For example, if you say you picked Wale Edu, you picked Adebayo Adelabu, the woman from Imo State, yeah, these are very, look, some of these people, they will be outstanding in the cabinet in the United Kingdom or the United States. And I praise the president for that.
Mr. ADEMILUYI, some will say former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, did well in infrastructure.
You see, this emphasis on infrastructure, I think people should try and be a little more considered.
Okay.
Look, if you talk about infrastructure, you have to ask, what is the cost-benefit analysis? It's like in this state, I hope you don't mind.
I know where you're going.
It's like in this state, you said that a governor built
an overhead bridge.
Frankly, I dispute the efficacy of that. To me, development this is putting the cart before the horse. You spend 2.7 billion naira, if my figures are right, to build an overhead bridge, a totally unnecessary overhead bridge. If you round it up to 3 billion naira, and you spent 1 billion naira per senatorial district on rural roads, the multiplier effect, according to the World Bank, is 10%. According to Goldman Sachs, is 12%. Now, 1 billion naira per the central district of rural roads, right? You have increased the production of the subsistence farmer. You have increased his profit margin. You have cut down post-harvest losses by about 40 to 45%. And the consumer in the markets at Alekodo and Kindeko is now going to see at least a 12 to 15% reduction in the cost of the whatever he's buying. In the end, with an increase in production by the farmer because he's making less, it's important. He's not making as much loss as before. You're going to trigger off cottage industries, which is what you need. That's been the developmental experience in countries where they have their brain school. So if you say that you're impressed about infrastructure, I wonder when this idea came from, that you put the cart before the... How much, I mean, what has been the multiplier effect, the social benefits, how much employment have this infrastructure created? I think that people have got a misconception of development process. These are, in my opinion, mainly vanity projects. And I don't think that I'm going to... Anybody can build it. What's the big deal about building flyovers? I mean, people have been building flyovers before I was born.
All right.
So let's look at the choice and the regions at which we've had this set of people, 47 of them. It might seem somehow that recycling certain people, but let's look at from each of the regions. Do you think Mr. President has done well to have been able to go virtually everywhere, at least to pick one or two names from each of the regions, the state of the
country? He had a constitutional obligation to fulfill, so he didn't have any choice in the matter. I mean, he had to, I don't know how you have, it says a lot about the country that you have a constitution in which you have to pick a minister per state, by force, by fire, and of course one minister per geography. So that's not the federal character thing. So I think my own destiny is not that he picked from geopolitical zones. I wish actually that we had more female representation, because what we've said, this is only 19%. Yeah. And it's disappointing for a country like Nigeria. It is very disappointing.
No other administration has done this.
I know we are starting from a low base, but there's nothing praiseworthy about it. I was thinking that given a new wave, which a lot of people had anticipated and expected from the present president, I wouldn't have been surprised if we had a 40% women representation. You see, because it's not because they are women. It is because talent is limited in any society at any given moment in time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be talent. And women constitute about 49–50% of the talent pool available, which means that you have to fish in that talent pool. And the reason why I'm very disappointed, actually, is because if you look at the quality of the female nominees, it's commendably high. Okay. They can hold themselves in any country, anywhere in the world. And I felt proud. I mean, a very long-standing friend of mine called me from London, and he said they were watching one of the channels, Nigerian channels, their own subscription. I said they were all very proud. All of them. These were about 7, 8 Nigerians. Since our time zone is almost the same. They were watching, and they said, and they didn't talk about the men. All of them were commenting on the quality of the females. So if you could be diligent enough to find this kind of talents, why did we have 19%? It means that we have such a talent pool that if you had made 35–40% female composition, it means the quality would have been higher and there would have been greater expectation in terms of performance.
Of course, and right here we have it on our screens. The
female nominees, Inkiruka, Onyejocha, Stella Okotete, Lola Adejon, Hanatu Musawa, Beta Itu, the one Mr. ADEMILUYI has been speaking glowingly about, Uju Haneye, Miriam Shatima, and Iman Sulaiman Ibrahim, and Doris Uzok. I think Miriam Shatima from Kano State used to work with this former world champion Usain Bolt at some point. So just like you have said, yeah.
But I mean, look at the quality. It's just that we don't have time. If you did a comparative analysis, the quality of the women outstrips that of the men. There's something wrong. So if the, I mean, this,
of course, we have some brilliant men.
No, I'm not saying that as well. We have some that, but I'm saying that pound for pound, overall, they outstrip the men. Probably, I'm not. I mean, I've already mentioned some men like Adebayo, Wale, Professor Patti. I mean, they're world class. These are world class. But if you look at it, if you put it pound for pound, the quality is much higher. Then I'm going to have to keep repeating myself like a broken down record. Why limit this kind of quality to only 19%? It should have been about 40%, because these people, unless we are disappointed in the end, and life is full of disappointments. I think that these are going to be very, I don't know what ministries they're going to give them, but I can't see any of these 9 women not performing well, depending on the structure of the government, because they have a solid preparation intellectually and managerially. I believe they'll do a sterling job.
Okay, that was what I was about to ask, that the let the women breathe thing now is beginning to play into the society.
By picking this, by picking this quality, I'm very impressed.
But don't you think they will do in one time or the other, the men will want to take the more juicy positions and just relegate these women to the background?
There's a problem about all this. First of all, they have to do a constitutional amendment that portfolios must be attached. Or I scrap the process. This is a charade. If you don't attach portfolios, what are you screening anybody for? The people who performed well because they had time to actually discuss themselves and what they, like Wale Edu did, like that woman from Imo State, the commissioner for finance. He was entirely, I mean, you educated, you see, this, an economy is about confidence building and about signals. When you listen to Wale Edu, that woman from Imo State, some of the others, Professor Patti, it gives you confidence. It gives an investor watching the thing in a bond office in London or New York, it gives him confidence. So if you don't attach posts, and then secondly, we don't have a problem, right? Are you going to have ministers of state, which is contentious, which means that whoever is minister of state, you made the person redundant. What kind of ministers? I mean, you can't have 47 ministries now. It's not possible. So you see, this whole thing is kind of muddled up because people can only perform with the tools they have. A workman is as good as his tools. And we might end up, the way things are shaping up, just sacrificing talents by making people redundant, giving them non-jobs. Because they got to have, I mean, Keyamo was complaining, he should have resigned. But he was complaining because he had a non-job. So I'm very, or maybe you go back to the Shagari era where you had minister in the ministries.
I remember that.
The whole thing is, you know, you do some things outstandingly well, and then you bring it down again. Because I don't understand the kind of structure of government that can accommodate 47 ministers. It just, I mean, okay, you work it out. How do you do it? You have ministers without portfolio. You have ministers in the ministry. You have ministers of state. The whole thing is
don't you think probably, you know, there are certain ministries whereby you say Ministry of Power, Housing, and one thing. Probably he intends breaking them down.
Certainly he's going to,
so that he can now, to unbundle all these
obviously
ministries.
He's going to bring them, but you see, it also brings into question about the purpose of government. Look, I don't believe, for example, that once you have a regulatory agency in place, you should have a minister of power. It's a contradiction in terms. You have an electricity regulatory agency and you have a minister of power. Who's supposed to be? You should have an electricity regulatory. If it's an independent body, it's technically equipped. It goes and does it. So what's the Minister of Power going? So you're going to have a lot of ministries that have to be there to accommodate 47 people instead of the other way around, which is that you should implement to the fullest the Oronsaye report. And merge ministries. It's obvious you're not merging any ministries and departments now. So we're going to have a bloated governance. It's not that government is bloated. It's just that it's the wrong kind of bloating. I mean, the Navy is not 1/3 of the size of what we should have if we have a proper blue economy. This country is not just about oil theft.
Yes, sir.
When people talk about oil theft, you are also forgetting that Nigeria is losing about $500 million United States dollars worth of shrimps to illegal shrimping. Massive trawlers, what they call sweeper trawlers, which is destroying your seabed here, are coming in from places like Japan. And the loss, conservatively estimated, is $500 million a year in Nigerian territorial waters. If you had an effective Navy, which we don't have because it's underfunded, you can counteract that. $500 million a year is a lot of money. That's about 400 billion naira. Can you imagine what 400 billion naira can do? One, to defend the rate of the naira, the quality of, and then secondly, what 400 billion naira can do put into primary health care and primary education. It's a game changer because every year it's not a one-off thing. So we don't have the right kind of structure of government. And it is obvious, the unfortunate thing, contrary to what was expected and contrary to what he did or was said to have done, because there's some exaggeration in this state, in Lagos State, it's looking rather wobbly, I must admit.
Mr. ADEMILUYI, talking about the structure and putting round pegs in round holes. Now, is not enough, just like you have said, to have brilliant minds, brilliant, fantastic men and women. You know, we have Lateef Fagbemi on our screen. You know, many have been touting maybe he will be the next Attorney General of the Federation. Let's look like at some critical ministries. And some names that we have here, in your own opinion, who are those that you think should be heading some ministries? Because the structure is very important. It's not just what I said earlier. It's not just about having brilliant minds. It's having the structure that will make them work. So that you just don't bring them into an unworkable situation and then they end up, people seeing them as failure. So let's look at the Attorney General Federation, the judiciary, of course, the youth and sport, health, finance. So are there some names that you will have wanted to be in a particular
ministry? I think you start with finance, and the country should have a coordinating Minister of the Economy.
So that's very central.
Because we're going to run a war economy now.
Just like what Okonjo-Iweala did.
And you have someone like Wale Edu there. He should be the coordinating Minister of the Economy. And you should have very good materials, excellent materials like Adebayo Adelabu, who can be Minister of Planning, and that lady, fantastic, who can be Minister of Budget, that kind of thing. So for finance, actually, I give it to the President that he has actually got a very first-class finance team. You've got Edu, you've got Adebayo Adelabu, you've got the medical doctor who became a financial guru. I think he's Dr. Uju or something. Uju in Imo State. And then you got a couple of others too with sound financial things. So there's no problem with the financial team at all. I think I can't see them making them sports minister or anything like that. The few beneficial things about the whole process, which Akpabio tried to make tremendously of, is that you can now see, which is important for this country, that you're going to have a first-class finance team, probably one of the best since 1999, or even since independence. It's very, very, it makes people optimistic. And then, then you have people like Pate, who will definitely, because Pate actually, for him to turn down a job as CEO of Gavi, to take this thing, it gives you hope that maybe the country still exists, because that's a big loss to him financially. I mean, whatever they're going to pay him as a federal minister can't be up to 5% in
what he stands to make.
What he stands to make as CEO. I mean, and if you look at the quality of his mind and his experience, he would have well, you couldn't get a better health minister, even in a developed country. And honestly, I mean, I give that to the president. I mean, that was a good choice. Although what I don't understand now is, I think there are about 5 other medical doctors.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put them? Well, I mean, you can put
Better IDOWU is a doctor.
Better IDOWU is a doctor. So many of them, 5 others apart from Party.
Yeah.
Of course, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be made ministers. I'm just wondering where they will fit in. I mean, a doctor will be good at saying something like humanitarian. I think there's a Minister of Humanitarian disaster management. So if you have a medical doctor, that will be, there are a lot of places where they can put them. But I'm quite impressed with what will be a really good finance team. And the fact that somebody like Pate is there, the authority, he would be a very...
How about education?
Well, I don't know any of this. There are a lot of people. Any educated person can be made Minister of Education if there's a
but someone relevant to that ministry.
I haven't seen anybody who...
Because we used to have an Adamu.
Well, he said
many persons were not impressed with.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the guy was a waste of time. It was a Tim Buhari appointee. He was just lethargic. Nobody's going to remember that guy's name by December. I'm telling you. You can still remember past ministers of education. I can't say, but when you measure his name now, I have to quickly do a memory check. You get what I mean? But there are a lot of people with solid managerial skills who I think...
So let's come back a little bit to the women issue here. We have 9 of them here now. Do you think that this is the beginning of probably opportunities, better opportunities for women in politics and in governance in Nigeria, even probably by 2027 now? It increases from 9 to, or before this first 4 years end, we could still probably have, but do you think this is the beginning of that opportunity the women folk have been looking for?
I hope so, because the history of Nigeria has often been 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. 2027 now, you might actually find that the number goes down to 4. It's very, the quality is good, but the number is terrible. I would have thought that the least we would have had, if you must have 47 ministers, I thought the least we could have had should have been 18 women, especially when you had the presence of mind to have found these very stellar people. I mean, they're first class. Forget about whether they're women. You know, which means that if you had 9 of these kind of people, you could have found diligently another 9 as good, perhaps even better than them. The country is better off. But I just hope that it's the beginning of putting all this waste of talent. Because it's not about whether they are women, they are disabled, they are young, they are old. You're talking really about a country putting its best foot forward and looking for the best and the brightest in the country. And I think that we must separate politics from governance. That, you know, maybe I think we should stand, and in a way, in its own inadequate way, the president seems to be doing that, to be separating governance from politics. But it's an advance, but I wish, honestly, that it had been much more than this.
Mr. ADEMILUYI, still speaking about inclusion, you have these women, 9 of them, mostly in their 40s. I'm talking about the place of the young people in this government. Most of these women are in their 40s. Beta IDOWU is still in her 30s. I think she's 36 or so. Will you give it to the president that this is quite inclusive as far as the young people is concerned?
Well, given our past experience,
some of the men as well.
Given our past experience, it's good, but it's not revolutionary. I mean, Awolowo was 41 when he was premier of the Western region, and Michael Okpara was 38 when he was in the premier of the East. The East is now how many states? About 7 or 5. No, I mean, you have to include the Niger Delta.
Okay.
That's so, 7. You know, so the guy was 38, and people like Bole Thomas, who died at 34, have been everything, chairman. You know, so it's good, because my own this thing about it is that I take objection to all this recycling, because apart from the fact that it's turning the ministerial, you've turned the Senate into an old a retirement home. You're not turning ministerial portfolios, which should be more hectic, more demanding into a retirement home as well. I'm not sure the country is fishing out its best talent. I'm not sure. Because like I said, if you look at the cabinet, for example, of Justin Trudeau in his first term, you will find that, in Canada, you find that apart from the fact that they had something like 43% female representation, 2/3 of Trudeau's parliament were below 45. Well, it's not surprising because Trudeau himself was just 43. Trudeau himself was 43. He was a young man. But, you know, my own thing is that, look, it's not a question of age. I mean, you can't discountenance the expertise and experience of people like Wale Etu. But it's just that I actually believe that a succeeding generation is better prepared, much more intelligent, better educated. I cannot compare myself in all seriousness to somebody who in their 30s now. I mean, if I had to do a job, it is better you employ someone because they're more alive than me. You'd be surprised. I mean, like I've messed around all the time with my phone, so I have to ask my children or their friends, your mom sort out kidding, you know, that kind of thing. So I would have preferred that 2/3 of the cabinet should be under 50 because they're better prepared, they're more alive. All right. And that's been the trend across the world now. Try and do a survey of cabinets abroad and you'll be surprised that, you know, because it's just commonsensical. You can't have a bunch of 40-doddies who, the world is changing by the minute. All this nanotechnology, this one, that one. The world is changing by the minute. You're going to have people who are alert intellectually and in terms of preparation. I'm not sure that this your retirement home people are.
You know, in a manner of speaking, when he said this is your retirement.
What Mr. Ademilui,
I'm very impressed with people who have been building gathers.
Who with this gather? Mr. Ademilui, as we coast home this morning, let me just, even as much as our city is not hot, let me put you on the hot seat. The former governor of Osun State, who has made this list as well. In what capacity, what ministry, with his managerial skill, his excellent managerial skill, which of the ministries do you think he will fit?
Okay, at the end of the program, I think you're in a light-hearted mood.
No, we are still on the program.
We are still on.
I know we must run in the next 1 minute.
Because when you said excellent managerial skills, I wasn't sure whether it was a sarcasm. Man wasn't. Okay, what was the excellent managerial skills in the 4 years? He built a gather.
We have an overhead. We have a couple of roads.
You call it a gather.
We have infrastructures.
Honestly, I don't know what ministry.
He paid salaries.
He paid salaries. I don't think this is actually, but I wish him the best. I don't know what ministries are going to build.
We'll keep our fingers crossed there.
But
we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Today we'll keep giving us. We'll keep giving us blow by blow account of Wike and Oyetola and their excellent managerial skills.
All right.
We'd like to thank you.
We must sincerely thank you.
Thank you so much.
Especially at this time.
Mr. KANMI ADEMILUYI, former editorial chairman, Daily Independent newspaper. Always a pleasure having you, sir.
Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Thanks
for the coffee. Kind of you.
Thank you so much. Right. We'll be back again on Monday on another edition of this program, Morning Spring from Western Spring Television. And we would like to say thank you to the entire transmission team. Thank you for clicking in, for making it happen. And obviously, my director said we should make sure that we let you know that please, at any time, any point in time, starting from this very second, no domestic violence, please. And just like, most especially to the men, if your wives, they tend to be more spiritual. If they say don't go out, please. And Baba, don't walk out. If your wife says don't walk out, and she almost himself, you know the deal. If you look up right, real good. Right? TUNDE is my name.
All right. Femi Ojo is my name. Thank you for watching. Please do well to follow us on all our social media handles and of course on our YouTube page as well. Enjoy the rest and the best of your weekend. God bless Nigeria. Femi Ojo is my name. Bye-bye.
Morning.
Gary, if you walk out that door, don't you come back. I said if you walk out that door.
Oh my God.
Gary, if you walk out that door, don't you come back. I said if you walk out that door.
Oh my God.
Gary, if you walk out that door, don't you come back. I said if you walk out that door.
Oh my God.
Gary, if you walk out that door, don't you come back. I said if you walk out that door.
Oh my God.
Gary, if you walk out that door, don't you come back. I said if you walk out that door.
Oh my God.